In 1938, in a small town no one talks about anymore, a boy watched the world change without understanding why. His name was Elias. He believed he had survived the hardest part. He had no idea what was coming. The house was always quiet in the mornings, not silent but gentle, the kind of quiet that felt safe. Wooden floors whispered under his mother's steps. Dishes touched each other softly in the kitchen. The kettle sang in low tones like it didn't want to disturb anyone. Elias liked to sit at the small table near the window, his feet not quite reaching the floor, watching the light move across the wall as the sun climbed higher. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. Everything felt complete. His father sat with the newspaper folded carefully in his hands, reading slowly, methodically, as if the words themselves needed respect. Every now and then he would glance up at Elias and smile, a simple smile, a quiet promise. Nothing in that room suggested danger, nothing hinted at loss, nothing warned of what was waiting outside. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Outside, the town looked exactly the same as it always had. Same narrow streets, same small shops, same baker opening his door before sunrise, same old man sweeping the sidewalk in front of his house every morning at the same time. Routine was law in that place. Change was unwelcome. Elias walked those streets with his school bag bouncing against his back, counting steps, tracing cracks in the pavement with his eyes, imagining stories in the shapes of the clouds. To him, the world was still soft, still kind, still predictable. But adults walked differently now. Their shoulders were tighter, their steps faster, their eyes always scanning. And Elias didn't know why. He only knew something had shifted. It didn't start with shouting. It didn't start with violence. It didn't start with blood. It started with silence. Neighbors who used to wave no longer did. Shopkeepers who once smiled now looked away. Voices that once filled the streets lowered. And Elias noticed children always do. He once tugged gently at his mother's sleeve as they walked home. "Why doesn't Mrs. Keller say hello anymore?" His mother paused, just for a moment, so brief that most people wouldn't see it. But Elias did. She looked down at him and smiled, a fragile smile, a practiced one. "She's just tired," she said. And they kept walking. But Elias felt the lie. Because children don't hear words, they feel them. At night, the house changed. The lights were dimmer, the voices lower, the air heavier. Elias would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting his breaths, listening. He heard the kitchen chair move, the soft clink of a cup, the hush of whispers. His parents spoke in fragments now, half sentences, interrupted thoughts. "It's getting worse. People are afraid. We should be careful, careful." That word started appearing everywhere, like a shadow. Be careful what you say. Be careful where you go. Be careful who you trust. Elias didn't know what they were being careful of. He just knew they were afraid. And fear has a sound. It's not loud, it's tight. His father was changing, not in big ways, in small ones. He checked the door twice before sleeping. He kept his coat closer. He flinched at sudden noises. Once, Elias saw his hands shaking as he poured tea. Just slightly, barely noticeable. But Elias noticed. He always did. And something in him broke that day. Because until then, his father had been unbreakable. And when a child sees the strongest man in his world begin to crack, the world itself feels unsafe. The town grew tense, Men stood in corners longer. Groups gathered in low voices. Strangers appeared. They didn't look dangerous. That was the worst part. They looked ordinary. But they watched. And Elias felt it. He felt it in the way conversations died when his father entered a room. In the way doors closed more quickly. In the way laughter became rare. The town was still standing, but it was no longer breathing. One afternoon, Elias came home to find his mother sitting at the table, her hands folded, unmoving. She didn't look up when he entered. He waited, quietly. When she finally raised her eyes, they were red. She smiled, always the smile. "Go wash your hands," she said. And Elias obeyed, because children don't ask when they're scared. They listen. That night, the whispers were longer, more urgent. Elias pressed his ear against the wall, holding his breath. "They're making lists. Families are leaving. Some are disappearing. Disappearing." That word didn't belong there, not in his house, not in his world. He lay awake long after the voices stopped, long after the lights went out, long after the town went silent. He stared into the darkness and tried to imagine what disappearing looked like. He couldn't, and that scared him more. The next morning, like everything looked normal. The sky, the streets, the light. His mother prepared breakfast. His father adjusted his coat. Elias tied his shoes. A perfect illusion. Because sometimes, the last peaceful day looks exactly like every other, and no one realizes it is the last. They walked together down the street, Elias between them, his small hands wrapped tightly in theirs. He felt safe there, protected, anchored. He didn't see the man watching from across the street. He didn't notice the tension in his father's jaw. He didn't understand the way his mother's grip tightened. All he knew was that the air felt heavy, like something was about to fall. That afternoon, a sound broke the town. Boots, not hurried, not chaotic, measured, controlled, intentional. Elias watched from the window as unfamiliar men walked down the street. Their posture was rigid, their eyes empty. No one spoke, no one moved. The town held its breath. His father stepped behind him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Firm, protective. Elias felt the tension in his grip. "Go to your room," his father said quietly. Elias hesitated. "Now," his father repeated, and Elias obeyed, because for the first time his father's voice was not a request, it was a warning. From his room, Elias heard the knock, not loud, not violent, but final. His heart began to race. His hands shook. He didn't know why. He just knew. Everything had changed. He believed he had survived the hardest part. He had no idea what was coming.